Hi everyone, my name's Viola and this is 5 Things I Like. Welcome to my vlog channel. This is the first video in a series of what I hope is many more to come. Thank you for joining me. I'm glad you somehow stumbled on this channel and you're here. I hope you enjoy your stay. And because it's the first video, I felt it was appropriate to tell you a little bit about what inspired the making of it. 5 Things I Like has been 2 years in the making. So in order to understand my mindset, we're going to have to go back to June 2013. I was driving to work, listening to NPR, and a story about 3D printing comes on. At the time, I don't know very much about 3D printing. I'd heard about it in the context of making toys, figurines, but I never saw the use of one for me, like a 3D printer for myself, so I never looked into it much. But in the story, a South African construction worker named Richard Van As is injured in a work-related accident, and it results in the loss of 2 fingers and the mangling of 2 others. Bottom line, prosthetics are not an option. So he needs to find an alternative. And he stumbles on a video from a man in the United States named Ivan Owen. He's a mechanical puppeteer, and in this video, he's modeling a hand that he created that moves in response to the movement of his fingers. So he's able to, bend the fingers and pick things up. It's exactly the kind of stuff that Van As is looking for. So he contacts Owen, he explains to him his situation, asks if maybe he could give some suggestions, some tips, or maybe even collaborate. Owen decides to collaborate, and for a while they contact each other via Skype, they send each other mail, through snail mail, and it's a long process, but they make some progress. And then finally one day, one of Van As's friends is able to donate some frequent flyer miles to the cause, and Owen is able to travel to South Africa for the first time. During that trip, a South African mother of a 5-year-old boy named Liam contacts them. She explains that her son was born with this rare condition called amniotic band syndrome, and she wonders if they can help. Now, what's amniotic band syndrome? It's this condition that occurs in utero. Fibrous bands form around a part of the body, and it cuts off circulation and prevents the growth of appendages. So in this case, like her son, he's born without the fingers on his right hand. And they agree to help. They do. So they meet up with the family and they create a small aluminum version of what they've been working on. And because he doesn't have fingers to make it move, they design it so that it responds to the movement of the flick of his wrist. It's incredible. There's actually video of it. I will link down below so you can check it out for yourself. So cool. It takes work, it takes practice, but eventually he's able to pick stuff up with it. He's able to throw a ball. Incredible. That alone as a story would have been so cool. But the story doesn't end there. Ivan Owen heads back to the States and he starts thinking about printable parts. And so he contacts a company named MakerBot. MakerBot is a company that makes 3D printers, materials for 3D printing. He explains what he and his collaborator are trying to do and asks the company if they'd be willing to donate a machine. They end up donating 2. And suddenly, work that was taking weeks at a time to complete was suddenly condensed to 20 minutes. And when cost evaluating the materials and things of that nature, the price was brought down to $150. Incredible. I mean, I didn't know too much about the costs of prosthetics from, say, like a hospital affiliate or whatnot. I figured it'd be in the thousands. I looked up the numbers for, what that might cost. Yeah, in the tens of thousands of dollars. And they created something that could feasibly be made for $150. And then it didn't stop there. They donated, well, not donated, but they put the plans and the instructions, the materials list for how to make this RoboHand, is what they called it, onto a site called Thingiverse. Thingiverse is a Creative Commons free license type of site where designers just upload things that they've created and people can look it up and download the instructions and make it at home. It's incredible. So they provided this info for free, pretty much. And they didn't stop there. They continued refining the model, and they created a new version that would click together kind of like Legos would. And when you add up the cost for materials for that model, it was brought down to $5. I mean, that's what I was thinking. That's what my mind was doing. I got to work, and I looked up the story so I could listen to it again. I logged on to NPR, and I clicked play because I was so fascinated by this story. I couldn't believe it. For the first time, I basically associated some practical application to the use of a 3D printer. And, you know, I'm revisiting the story now so that I could tell you about it. And I'm being reminded about the fact that, you know, little Liam's hand, his little 5-year-old hand, isn't going to stay that small forever. Eventually, he's going to need a newer model. And having to go through the prosthetic route would have been very expensive to replace parts, to make a newer model, bigger model, more material because it's a bigger hand. And this, you can adjust to whatever measurements are necessary, and you just print the parts. Such an incredible story. I was really inspired by it. I was in awe, and I was excited. I was really excited about it, and I thought it was such a heartfelt, inspiring story. So good. But then the story ended, and I started clicking other links, and through a link of a link, I found another story. I saw this picture of Daft Punk, and at the time, Get Lucky was a really popular song. I already liked Daft Punk. I didn't know much about the duo. I didn't know the names of the singers, and I didn't know, like, what they sounded like. I'd never heard them speak or anything. But if you're anything like me, you'll like the discussion of the creative process. I really enjoy hearing about why things are made, how things are made, the thought process that went into making something. So I listened to this interview, and it was like a bow-tied gift wrapped into an article news segment. It was incredible. It was so insightful, and I think it made me an even bigger fan of Daft Punk, honestly. And certainly, I think I would have gotten it anyway, but in some ways, I feel like it made me even more anxious to buy their album, and certainly more likely to buy their album than to just download Get Lucky, for instance. Such a great article. If you're a fan of Daft Punk, I definitely suggest listening to it. Chances are you might have already heard it, but if not, check it out. It's so cool. They talk about music that inspired them when they were growing up. It's music that inspired some of the sounds on Random Access Memories. They play kind of guest DJs, and they play music that they like listening to. It was so cool. I loved it. And like I said, for me at the time, I'd never heard them speak. And I had only, in kind of discussions with friends and whatnot, had realized that they don't really show their faces that often. So for them to open up and really talk about what inspires them was really cool. And so it ended up that I just had 2 back-to-back incredible stories that I thought were amazing. I was excited about this Daft Punk interview I just listened to. I was super excited about this 3D printing robo-hand. And I was by myself at work, you know, just kind of listening to these stories in the background, thinking, people need to know about this stuff. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. They should be talking about it. Why do not more people talk about these things? How did I not know? And it occurs to me, this light bulb goes off, or clicks on, and I decide to make a vlog. I think, you know, I've always wanted to do something video creative, and maybe I should just make something where I get to talk about cool stories like this. And I think about it in my mind, I continue working, and One Republic song comes on, and I hear this lyric, something I like, and it hits me. 5 things I like. I played around with just random items of the day, maybe 10 things. 5 just rings. And there he goes. 5 things I like was born. So I have the prosthetic 3D printing story. I have this Daft Punk article I want to share with people. And I decide, okay, the other three things, they've got to come from something that are relevant to me at the time, things that really are interesting to me, but in a relevant context. And at that time, I decide I want to do a food and drink segment. And I'm calling this my local spotlight. At the time, I used to frequent this place downtown Tucson called Chocolate Iguana. I'm from Tucson, Arizona. In downtown Tucson, there's a place called Chocolate Iguana. It's this coffee shop, really quaint, cute, small, and they create this drink that I became addicted to from high school to college. I mean, they say ways to save money, it's to not go to coffee shops. I had to take that advice because this coffee mocha shake is divine. It is so good. It's got a couple scoops of espresso ice cream, a shot of espresso, some chocolate milk. It's blended. You put some whipped cream on the top, a little chocolate syrup. Heaven. And I'm not even a coffee drinker. Full disclosure, I'm actually not much of a anything but water drinker. I kind of drink tea sometimes. I infuse my water a little bit, but basically I do water. About a year and a half ago, I started a water cleanse, and I kind of just never stopped. So I haven't been there, but I mention it to you because A, we're talking about my mindset in 2013, and B, I'm at this point where if I were to have a cheat drink, that would be the one. I think about it. I've taken my sisters and my mom there and purchased it for them. My mouth waters. It's such an amazing drink. I'm actually kind of watering at the mouth a little bit thinking about it. It is so good. It's like liquid candy. Delicious. And like I said, I'm not even a coffee drinker, and I fell in love with this drink. I recommend you go there. If you like blended coffee drinks, I think it's one of the best in town. I also think it's a really great place for other things. Coffee is one of their big draws, but they have pastries. The initial reason for me even going there, the first time I ever went, was because of their scones. My mom and I were at my aunt's baby shower. A lady took some scones. She diced them up so we could sample different flavors. Delicious. We asked, where'd you get these from? Chocolate Iguana. And that's how we ended up even going there. We went there for the scones. Delicious. Try their blueberry one. It's probably one of my favorites. It's also one of their most popular, so if you go late in the afternoon, you might not even get one because they go like hotcakes. So good. But they also make seasonal ones, kind of like a pumpkin flavor. Sometimes they have an orange zest version. Really good. Delicious. They make eclairs, and they have bear claws. I love their bear claws. The first time I ever tried one was from that shop. Delicious. And they have something called a Doodah bar. It's really delicious. If you're not into coconut, maybe it's not for you. But if you like graham cracker, chocolate chip, coconut, it's delicious. It's so good. I don't even remember what all is in it, but it's so good. And I can make it last for like a couple days, maybe 2 or 3. It's so delicious. It's like an edible version of how I liken this drink to be heaven. It's really tasty. I love it. They've got, little cute magnets, and it's just a nice place. It's really comfortable. The people are nice. And if you're ever in downtown Tucson, I suggest you check it out. I will put a link down below so you can kind of get a feel for the webpage and see where they're located and whatnot. And let me know if you've ever been there or if you've heard of something similar to it in your town. I'm curious to know if there's anything else like it. I had never heard of it. I'd never seen it anywhere else, and I've kind of, at the time, I had tried other type of blended coffee drinks, which were okay. But this one, my favorite. As a non-coffee drinker, I found that to be success. Anyway, that was my local spotlight. And I don't sound as enthusiastic as I might have been then, but like I said, it is a great place. I think you should check it out. And I'm not kidding. If I do my cheat drink, Even if I'm not here in front of my camera, I will take a picture and maybe a mini video of me on my phone. You will know, because it is that good. It's so delicious. Okay, on to the next subject. The next thing that I decided at the time I would talk about is TV. I wanted to talk about maybe some television shows that I like. And I know in future videos I will do that. But because this is my first video, it's so fitting that I talk to you about my favorite show. And that series is, I actually have the DVD set, Smallville. Now, a funny way that I found this show. I was a senior in high school. I was on break. I believe it was winter break. I actually don't remember the specifics of that part, incidentally, but I know it was break because I was up late. And now I'm kind of a night owl, but at the time, I had a pretty strict bedtime, and I wouldn't have been up at that time. So, everyone else is asleep. For whatever reason, I can't. So I go to the living room, and I start flipping through channels. I don't know what I'm watching necessarily, because it's one of those old school cable boxes. It changes the channel, but you don't actually have the visible guide on TV at the time. And yeah, I'm the class of 2004, so this is like 11, 12 years ago. Old school machine right there. But I land on Channel 8. It's the WB, I know that. And the show's already in progress. But, okay, superficial point here. I am stricken by the look on the star's face. I mean, I didn't know he was the star at the time, but it was his face, Tom Welling's face. I thought, wow, he's really good looking. That's what made me stop. But I tell you, I kid you not, the story is what kept me. Like I said, it was already in progress. I didn't even really know what was going on. I didn't know all the characters. But the story was so gripping. It was just the perfect story for me. I'll never forget it. The show was over, and I was dying to know what I had just watched. I wanted to watch it again. I wanted to see the entire episode. So the next day, I looked through our newspaper. At the time, because we didn't have the guide on the TV, we had a local TV guide that would come in the newspaper every Sunday. So I scrolled through the little book. I look at the time and the day that I was watching. So it was like a Tuesday. It's 11 o'clock, Channel 8. I look, and it says Smallville. So I'm thinking, okay, was I watching Smallville? Is that what I watched? So I look for that current day. So it would be the Wednesday. I look and see if they repeat it. At 11, they're repeating it. So I stay up. 11 o'clock, I tune in. I watch from the beginning. I see the theme song. Confirmed it was Smallville that I had been watching. I watched this episode. I'll never forget the first episode I watched. I'll never forget the second. I don't think I'll ever forget the third. Actually, from then on, I pretty much watched in order. The rest is history. Again, I was hooked. Maybe I just have an addictive personality. I don't know. Something about the show just really drew me in. Like I said, I stopped just because I thought that Tom Welling was really attractive. I didn't know it was Tom Welling at the time. But I stayed for the story. And the more I got into the show, the more I loved it. I was a senior in high school, so most of my high school career had gone by. But in retrospect, catching up to the third season, the third season being the first season I ever watched, I really felt a connection to this character. Now, if you don't know what Smallville is, basically, it's the story of Clark Kent and Superman before he becomes Superman. So, throughout the first 4 seasons, we watch the development of his powers. We watch him in high school dealing with this idea of being different but trying to blend in, feeling of alienation, and wanting to be quote-unquote normal. I don't know that I could ever say I was ever an outcast or anything close to exiled, and I could obviously never relate to having superpowers or being from the planet Krypton, but just the whole struggle of wanting to get it right, wanting to find your place in the world was really relatable to me, and that was definitely one of the draws. I was indifferent to Smallville in terms of Superman before watching the show. I didn't even know Smallville was a show, and I really didn't know much about Superman, but that show made me a Superman fan. So if you ever watch me and I'm wearing a Superman shirt, know that yes, I am a very big Superman fan now, but the reason I am is because of this show. The show was really life-changing in a lot of ways. Like I said, it gave me something to relate to, something I didn't know I needed or wanted, but I was drawn to it. But it also introduced me to social media. I got really involved with some message boards online and the whole culture of getting spoilers and looking out for teaser trailers and reading, interviews with the producers and just learning about the industry as a fan that way also really helped me when I finally got into grad school as a media arts student and discussing new media and technology and social media and fan interaction. It was like a case study from my own perspective, and I was applying it to something academic. The show really shaped a lot of how I look at television and how I respond to it, and I'm just really thankful and grateful because I truly love the show. I spent 8 years of my life with it, and I have zero regrets. The saddest day probably was the last day, and it was also one of the happiest because the journey that we were working towards was achieved, and I love it. I know it's not everybody's cup of tea. Everybody has their own favorite superhero. And like I said, it really wasn't a DC Marvel thing for me. It wasn't a this guy versus that guy. I was indifferent. I just really fell in love with this character. I really fell in love with the show. And I don't know who exactly I'd recommend it to, what type of person, but I say give it a shot. If you like a super guy who, he struggles with everyday life and being a superhero, he juggles, being a moral compass of sorts. He questions, why he is who he is, and really deals with the whole idea of, having powers and not being able to help people it's like not an option. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff in there. There's a lot of stuff about identity. There's a lot of things about purpose. And I just find it really fascinating. And like I said, I just really love the character. So anyway, I could go on and on and on. I could talk about it for days. If you've ever seen Smallville and you're a fan, please talk to me. Maybe I didn't even know it and we talked about it on the message board. If you have always been interested and you weren't sure if you wanted to watch it or not, I say go for it. Like I said, I know it's not for everybody, but talk to me. We can make this. We can make you a fan yet, I think. I think it's a really great show. I hope that you like it. And even if you don't, I mean, it's okay. I don't want to bash it too much, but, that's fair too. And I understand that. But let me know if you have seen it. Let me know what you like about it. If you want to know what I like about it, we can have our own little discussions about it. I love the show. Like I said, I could talk about it all day. And so I will stop there, or else I will continue talking about it, and 2 hours later, we'd still be talking about it, and we'd only be at season 3. So, that is television in review. Like I said, I felt it was appropriate to really tell you about my favorite show ever, because it kind of sets the standard for what I look for in a show. Not just like they have to be superheroes, they don't have to be, but the way that I respond to it, the way I feel about it, the way I relate to the characters and whatnot. Like I said, it taught me a lot about how to watch TV, and I love it. I'm forever grateful. I hope you love it too. That was television in review. Okay, and now the final thing that I would have talked about in 2013, and I'm going to talk to you about it now because I actually still love it, is my song of the week. It is a song called Your Touch by Blake Lewis. How many of you, raise your hands, how many of you know who Blake Lewis is? Well, I'm going to tell you. He is the runner-up to Season 6 American Idol. And I'll tell you, I'll be honest, I'm not much of an American Idol watcher. It's not like I like it or dislike it so much. It was just, I never really watched it. But that season, my sister was a really big fan of Sanjaya. And no, he's a cute contestant. I mean, he was this 16-year-old kid who was from Hawaii. He had a really great audition, and then I don't know what happened. He ended up in the top 10, and Simon Cowell could not be happy with a single performance. But, I mean, the kids totally loved him, and my sister thought he was really talented, and she was watching, so I watched with her. And in the process of watching, I discovered Blake Lewis, and I fell in love with the dude. Now, I did say he was runner-up. And so, who was the winner? It's actually an Arizona girl, Jordin Sparks. And so I say, as much as I love Blake Lewis, if he couldn't win, I'm happy it was the Arizona girl, right? Go Arizona. And she was also very talented. So, you know, it was a tough one. But I loved Blake Lewis. He was really unique in my sense of watching it. I had never really watched the show, so I can't speak for how unique he was. But he was a beatboxer. He liked kind of old school hip hop. He did this performance for the finale with Dougie Fresh. It was really awesome. So cool. I'll link it down below so you can see it. And actually, one of my favorite performances he did, the one that actually made me vote for him, he's, by the way, the first reality TV show contestant I've ever voted for. And it was because of this performance he did on Bon Jovi Week called You Give Love a Bad Name. And he did this really cool hip version of it. It was so cool. It blew my mind. I'd never seen anything like it. And I was already a fan of his. That just, I mean, like I said, he is the first. He is the first reality TV person I'd ever voted for. And so after this series, or, you know, the season was done, I kind of followed his career a little bit. I asked Santa to please get me his debut CD for Christmas. I did get it. I love it, actually. And then I got kind of out of touch, got busy with work and whatnot, and one day I was listening to some music on my iPod, and he popped up, and I thought, what is he doing these days? I want to look up Blake Lewis. And I find this song that coincidentally was a current song at the time, called Your Touch. Now, the thing is, you might actually know the song and not even know it, because this song was used in a Microsoft Internet Explorer commercial for their touch technology. So it was kind of a play on words, so you can touch on the screen, and Internet Explorer was supposed to be really, like, touch-friendly or something like that, and they used his song in the commercials, and he was featured in the commercial, and I saw it twice on Hulu at least. I might have seen it more, but I also looked it up on YouTube. But if I saw it here in Tucson, Arizona on my Hulu feed, chances are you probably did too. And I just was really happy, first of all, that he got this national deal, international deal, because if you look on YouTube, there are like German versions of the commercial. I mean, he got some international exposure too. And it's an awesome song. It's this electronic pop vibe that I'm already telling you I like Daft Punk, so this totally is kind of in that vein, and it was good. I had it on rotation. I listened to it easily 5 times just last week as I was preparing to make this video 2 years later, but I love the song. I think it's great. It's a love song. It almost doesn't feel like a love song. You can groove to it. It's got a great beat. I love it. I hope you like it too. I will link down below. Actually, I'll link down below to You Give Love a Bad Name, so you can check out that performance. Another performance that I also really love that he did of Time of the Season, I will link to a video of the commercial that he did and the actual song. I hope you love it as much as I do, because I think it's great. Let me know what you think. And that is the end of my top 5 list. Wow. Thank you. If you made it this far with me so far, I really appreciate you sticking with me. That was, in a nutshell, kind of the stuff that inspired the making of this site. So definitely those NPR stories at the beginning, though, those were the particular stories that really made me want to make this channel. And then the other stories kind of rounded out the list, and I hope that gives you a taste of what this is supposed to be like. I'll kind of experience things throughout the week, and anything that stands out, anything that sticks with me, anything that makes me say, wow, or I love it, or I want it, I'll present to you on a weekly basis. The initial idea was to do it on a Saturday, to upload the video so you could watch at the end of the week. Clearly, today is neither Saturday nor Friday when I would typically record, but it's the first video. It's a list from 2 years ago. Let's see what works best for us. I think, though, that the greatest outcome could be us creating a sort of community of types. I could tell you about some things that really inspired me. Maybe you know more about it. Like maybe you've experienced the RoboHand. Tell me about it. I want to hear about it. Those things interest me. Like I said, learning about the creative process. I like Daft Punk. I like Blake Lewis. Maybe you're familiar with those artists and other artists like them, and you want to send me some links. Maybe you've never heard of those things, but you think they're cool, and now you're a fan. That cyclical process of learning and sharing information is really fascinating to me. I love that stuff, and that's the other fringe benefit of having this channel. And I hope that we can build something like that. I think that would be a great thing. So before I go, I want to just let you know this isn't a sponsored site. And when I say that, I mean that the things that I mention on my list are just things that I really enjoy. Things that I've experienced, discovered. I really like them, and that's why I talk about them. Should anything ever arise, like maybe I talk about Blake Lewis and somebody says, hey, I'll pay you to listen to this, and if I happen to like it and talk about it here, I will let you know that that's the case. I think as we build this community and a little social relationship here, that's fair to you to know that something like that would happen. But as of yet, this is only the first video, so that's certainly not the case. But I wanted it out there so that you know. And that's it. That's my list. This is the first video. Thank you again for sticking with me. I hope to see you next time. Again, I'm Viola, and this was 5 Things I Like. See you next time.